In the most basic sense, composting is piling something up and letting it rot down. And that's it. Beyond that basic premise, different ratios of how you're piling your greens versus your browns, we'll get to that. That just serves to speed up or change the output of the type of compost you get. So you're looking at speed and quality when you're looking at changing how you're setting up your compost pile. I'm going to share with you my lazy gardener approach to composting. Composting hasn't been something that I devote a whole lot of time to. I use essentially the Pareto principles for this, where I put in 20% of the work to get 80% of the reward. I am using my compost bin to add my greens as I'm able to, and because I chose to use store-bought straw, typically you can get those bales over at like Tractor Supply or Runnings or whatever you have in your area. I use that as my brown material, or I let my greens from the garden crisp up in the sun and add that as a brown once it's completely dried and it's all desiccated. But essentially, I layer greens as I do my garden pruning, and then I top them with browns. I water it in and I walk away. And I don't do anything different until I'm finishing the pile. So it's months of adding to a pile before I top it with like a big cardboard layer, and then a pallet on top, and I just let it sink. When it comes to composting, you can devote as much time, attention, and optimization to the process as you want to, or as you have time available to do. It's a very personal process. And what I mean by that is personal to your life and what you have available for time and resources. The process I'm going to share with you is simply what's been working for me consistently for the last several years. In June of 2020, my spouse built as a gift to me a 3-bin compost system. So I've been able to use that since the fall of 2020. What I've had available for resources in that time has changed, because the amount of garden beds I had in 2020 is not the amount of garden beds I have now in 2023. So that first year, I didn't have enough material to fill one whole bin. I filled maybe half of it at that fall, because of just where it fell in the season, and learning how to use this new thing. By 2021, I was able to fill one whole bin, and then I put materials for the next year, like sticks and things, in another bin just to start. If you aren't familiar with greens versus browns in a composting system, when you perform just a general search of greens versus browns, there's a whole bunch of different charts for that. By 2022, I was able to use straw and other branches and materials to fill 2 bins of the system, leaving 1 bin empty for the following year. And this year I was able to not only fill a complete bin midway through the season, but I'm starting to set up one for this fall. Because composting isn't a task that I necessarily do each week or each month, like on a routine basis, it is entirely based on when I have enough materials to put in. So during the height of the summer season, when I'm pruning once a week, I have enough greens to add to the bins once a week. During the fall season, like right now is the time of filming this, maybe once a month. So my approach throughout composting has essentially been to have a brown material available. Your choice of brown material, pick whatever works for you. And then as I add greens to my compost bin, I put them in a layer, maybe about 3 to 4 inches thick. And then I make a layer of browns that's about half that size on top of that. So by layering these, I'm assisting with the ease of decomposition. You'll find a whole bunch of different ratios for your greens to browns. Try what works for you in your region. I have such a big swing of moisture levels from summer to winter. Your region is going to have specific necessities to help you break down material. But as I layer these in, green layers, brown layers, whatever ratio works for you, once I add that brown layer, I water it in. There's a certain amount of moisture necessary to aid in decomposition of your compost pile. The common wisdom associated with this is that you want it moist enough that if you pick up a piece of it and you squeeze, there might be 1 or 2 drops that come out. You don't want it saturated. Now, this is admittedly not something that I devote a whole lot of time to, but it works because the principles of composting are essentially that you pile it up and you let it rot. In my region, winter is not a time that I'm able to compost outside. Instead, what I do is I utilize my kitchen scraps in a worm bin inside, and I'm able to use those worm casings and broken down material throughout the rest of the season. This has been the system that works for me in my region with my lifestyle and the time that I'm willing to put into this. I've made small process changes here and there. This winter, I'm going to experiment with putting tarp around the edges of my compost bin to help retain moisture and heat as it decomposes, and the wind in my area during the winter is especially desiccating, so I think that'll help get it to break down correctly. So this isn't a system that I never alter anymore, and I want to encourage you with your own composting experiments to get an overview of what it is, see what you have available, and decide how much time you're willing to devote to it. It is absolutely something that you don't have to put in a whole lot of time in order to get a usable output. So if you, like me, are a lazy composter and you've got lazy composting tips, leave those in the comments below. Thanks for watching, and I'll catch you next time.